one solution for everything. What we need to think about is how do we ensure that based on whether it's a service or the level of engagement, we're asking for the appropriate credential at the time it's needed, not up front, but at the time it's needed, and engineering systems and the public sector to adopt that model rather than a model that says we're going to ask you for the most restrictive credentials so you could participate and engage with the government.
Can I just add that actually transparency is a fundamental to the proper delivery of privacy in the government. Access to information about individuals, notice to those individuals about what the government's doing with their information. So I fully agree with Vivek. I think it's a false dichotomy to suggest that the two are antithetical. And I think in fact, as transparency is developed more effectively over the coming months and years, that we'll see greater attention to privacy, and we just need to keep focus on educating people, making sure that government decision makers make the right decisions about the information that they have, so that they're not inadvertently placing information on individuals in the wrong place and that sort of thing, but keep moving in that direction.
Thank you. Okay. Our local audience.
Good afternoon. Don Purcell, Catholic University School of Law. My question is about the use of computing cloud technologies. I was wondering whether the transition team or the Obama administration is looking at choices and options on the use of computing cloud technologies to store, maintain, and retrieve data in a searchable format.
And we only have 5 minutes left for this part of the thing, so please keep your questions and responses short.
Questions.
So yes,
Yes.
we are looking at it. And it's central to our strategy, actually, in one of our key pillars, which is lowering the cost of government operations. And if you look at what's happening in the consumer space and cloud computing and the Darwinian pressure that exists in terms of innovation in the consumer space, we want to be able to bring that same type of pressure and innovation in the public sector by leveraging cloud computing. But we have, through the transition, we talked about 3 different clouds. One being leveraging consumer clouds. Second is cloud computing when it comes down to government operations where it's sensitive but unclassified or classified information. And third is rethinking the way or looking at how grants are issued. So if you look at Virginia, Maryland, and DC, the federal government would give grants around specific programs, but they're not allowed to deploy common technologies jointly, which would cut the cost of rolling out the services by order of magnitude 60–70%. And so that's sort of the approach, which is looking at the consumer cloud, the federal cloud, and the state and local cloud.
That was the theme. Google gave a major presentation this morning in this area. And that's the reason I asked the question. I wanted to see the extent to which this really interesting presentation this morning matched up with what the transition team and the Obama group is looking at. So good answer. Thank you.
We're going to take a couple more directly locally.
Richard Lehman, Citizens Planning Coalition, DC. So my questions or points are more ground up. One point, I guess, is a sort of student of government. Reinventing government wasn't really about democracy. And hopefully, from everything you've said, I think that's a significant difference in terms of business process redesign versus transformation of government. Because not a whole lot happened really with those books and stuff from
we really
16 years ago.
Okay,
Here we go then. Congress is really important. We can't communicate with congressional committees. All their systems are set up for you to contact individual Congress members. If you live in DC, you're out of luck. And so much of Congress's business is done by committees, and we can't really fundamentally communicate with them. Regarding information,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
just make one more point.
If it's about the executive branch, because these folks are
I understand that, and this is, don't forget defunding the archives so that they have much more limited hours now. Similarly, how do the various agency libraries and other information systems fit into this initiative? Not just the CIOs, but actually these entities that are already existing, like National Agricultural Library, et cetera.
Okay.
I'm not sure there was a question in there,
Well,
so I think we should take,
okay.
Let's take a couple of questions
Okay,
in so
good,
that we
yeah.
can respond to as many as possible. I'll try to work that into a response.
Okay, my name's Eric Mill. I'm with the Sunlight Foundation, and I think this question is primarily for Vivek. Because there's been a lot of talk about just getting data out to people and getting input from people in a sort of like holistic way. But I'm wondering specifically about developer contributions and ways to, like, if you're a developer and you're not part of a big organization that can afford to get certified to participate in the procurement process, like, how can you participate? So, like, and I can see two ways of doing that, like lowering the barriers to procurement, but also actually putting out government projects on services like SourceForge, GitHub, stuff like that, you know, where people can see where they can contribute code and see at least the path of it being accepted and integrated into government systems as a motivator to help people contribute. Do you see anything like that?
Yeah,
coming out of your work?
absolutely. And I mean, my experience in the public sector, and especially the way I approach a lot of these problems, has been to engage the public in helping us solve some of these problems. That's some of the work we did, and one of the things that the Sunlight Foundation has done is the competition, Apps for America. In the same way, what we're really looking to do is figure out, one, how do we engage people, because there's a hunger in terms of technologists who actually want to come in and they want to do it for free, they want to give back, and we want to be able to tap into those people. Historically, the government's reaction would be, well, only government people can touch certain things, which is fine, but there are a lot of problems that need to be solved that are not sensitive, that are not classified, and with the ability of leveraging the talent and the ingenuity of a lot of these developers, rather than going out there and spending more taxpayer dollars on expensive solutions. So Beth and I have been talking about this at length in terms of how do we engage an entire army of technologists to help us solve some of these really difficult problems.
Participation takes many forms, and we care about the participation that comes in the form of coding, as well as that comes, you know, code is left coast code as well as right coast code. Whether it's comments on law or comments on code, we're looking for both forms of engagement.
Yeah, Tom?
I'm Tom
Quick
Devine
question,
from the
Tom.
Government Accountability Project. And this question is applying the request to hear from us and the call for collaboration and participation to current events. Last week there was some confusion and controversy about the administration's views on whistleblower protection. On Monday there was just wonderful breakthrough in the scientific integrity policy. Then on Wednesday there was a signing statement that led a Republican senator to engage in very sharp attacks on the administration's commitment to that issue. My question is, for the people on the webcast, watching the web, and the members of our organizations, the whistleblowers, where do they direct their views on this issue? You folks at the front have been very gracious and supportive for how the activists can channel our voices, but where does the public at large, how do they weigh in on this one?
So WhiteHouse.gov. WhiteHouse.gov is one natural place to engage in dialogue, and on top of that, to actually contribute comments.
Yeah, and in addition, I mean, we've already spoken about this. You owe us an input next week. You've promised that you're going to send us some reports and try to gather feedback and input from a much wider community that we will then channel back to us through our Open Government web presence. So we're looking forward to that. And we, again, welcome the collaboration of groups who are helping to channel these conversations and discussions so that we're getting in manageable feedback that helps us shape and craft our policies now in this crucial phase.
One final question.
Thank you. My name is Jared Duval. I'm a fellow with Demos, where I'm working on a book called The Open Source Society. And my question, I think, is best posed to Beth, and that's on the participation specifically in the policymaking process. One of the things that I've been looking into is the great work that's being done both in person by groups like America Speaks in their 21st Century Town Hall meetings, and online. We have folks here from America Speaks, and online through projects like what was done between Open Left and Red State when there was a net neutrality bill being developed by Senator Durbin's office. I'm just wondering, what are some of the options that you're looking at in terms of how citizens participate either through America Speaks type models or online open source policy formation going forward?
So, yes, yes. looking at innovations both in I mean, I think I've sort of echoed this already. Looking at innovations in traditional practices and